Hello and welcome back to the Formula E Zone podcast. I'm Jack George Maynor. We're here for episode number 8, and what we'll be doing today is we'll be answering some key questions that came from the Monaco Grand Prix. We'll be looking at the question, should Formula E maybe have used the full Monaco Grand Prix layout? Is the cars ready for it? Some of the drivers think they are, some drivers maybe don't think it's ready for it, so we'll be asking that question. And looking at the qualifying system, are the best drivers starting to finally come to the top as we reach the conclusion of the championship? And then the last thing we are going to talk about today is the energy management. Looking into season 6, season 7, could Formula E have longer races? Is the energy management in Formula E far too easy? Now, I'm just not going to sit here and talk to you all by myself all night. That would be incredibly boring. So, joining me from the lovely website that is eFormLD is the one and only, the master of Formula E. He's just brilliant. He's been on this podcast since episode number 1, but he deserves this introduction anyway. It is Tobias Bloom.
Thank you for having me, Jack. What an introduction. Well tonight, thinking about just how you introduced me to the audience today.
Well, the thing is, for some of the audience now, it's pretty clear that this podcast is me. There's no Dan. We haven't even mentioned Dan. Okay, so Dan isn't here again. So obviously Dan, uni student, he's doing his exams. So poor boy, he's stressed. He's up all night. He's drinking that Red Bull, Monster Energy, whatever energy drink you can possibly drink. He's drinking it. As he's studying for his exams. I think it's his last week, so he should be back for Berlin. So obviously good luck, Dan. I know you'll be listening. We're all rooting for you. But I think everyone in this audience now who we've got knows it's us three. We've had some special guests, and we're obviously very grateful for those special guests that come on. But it's us three, but I still think it's worth the introduction.
Can I just say, or can I just correct you, that when you started out, said that we were talking about the Monaco Grand Prix. We're not, actually. We're talking about the E-prix, Jack.
Yeah, that's true, but I said the Monaco Grand Prix layout. I might have made that mistake, but, it's been a while since I've actually introduced a podcast. But, hey-ho, we make mistakes. But, yeah, Monaco E-prix, of course. But if I said Monaco Grand Prix, too many races going on in my head at the moment. But anyway, Monaco E-prix. So obviously what we'll do is we'll start with qualifying, because qualifying obviously was interesting. Qualifying is obviously crucial in Monaco with it limiting overtaking opportunities, but drivers obviously complain about the Group 1 system. But with Monaco being such a nice street circuit, it's smooth compared to any other track that we go to, maybe apart from the little section where we cut down the hill of Sandoval. That seems to be a bit more bumpy. But there was a real high grip surface going into chicane, which when I was walking on it on the way back, from the way home to the train station, I walked on that section of track and I thought, because you saw it on the track and I was like, that might be really slippery and it could cause some problems, but it was actually a real high grip surface. So
yeah, it was the opposite.
Yeah, it was complete opposite. So Tobias, you tell me, how did you see qualifying for you?
Qualifying always is crucial, especially in Formula E and especially in Monaco. Going into the weekend, we all thought, well, we're not going to see any, well, maybe a few overtakes, but not many, certainly. So the importance of qualifying was huge, we thought, in Monaco. In the end, we saw a couple of overtakes in the race, but going into qualifying, we were all assuming being on pole position is key here, and the driver who ended up on pole position was Oliver Rowland for, I have no idea, the third time this season.
Yes.
He ended up in Super Pole, and the Nissans just seemed to be super duper quick in qualifying, but he had a penalty still hanging over him, looming over him, coming out of Paris for causing a collision, if I'm not completely mistaken.
Yep, you're 100% correct.
Which meant that he had to take a 3-place grid drop. And that ended up in him being demoted from P1 to P3, with Jean-Eric Vergne taking pole position. And we thought, okay, so it's settled now, Jeff is going to win, and the top 10 will hardly change in the race. because qualifying is just so important in Monaco, we thought.
100%. Like, when you look at the small layout, and obviously getting onto that sort of discussion of whether or not Formula E could have used the full Grand Prix, the full layout of Monaco. Because when you look at that small track, you think, where on earth is there an overtaking point? Apart from maybe turn 1, but even turn 1's tricky. Like, it isn't an easy overtake. It's not even easy in Formula 1 into Santa Vita, even though it was modified, but it was still a really difficult thing. So when, you're totally right. When I saw Verne was on pole, I thought, yep. So he's won the race, whoever's second probably will finish second, and so on. Like, that's how crucial qualifying is. But obviously Formula E, it does what it does, and it does what it does best sometimes, and it threw up a crazy race. But as you mentioned there, so we had Oliver Rowland on pole, where he got that free-place grid penalty, which dropped into fourth, which then put Jean-Eric Verne up into first, with Mitch Evans into second. But Tobias Bloom, Mitch Evans, something happened. So, can you explain?
He also had a penalty, and he wasn't the only one. He was penalised in free practice 2, if I'm not wrong, and received a warning from the race director. And thing is, in Formula E, as well as F1 or any other major FIA single-seater series, you have you can get 3 yellow cards, basically. And
3 strikes and you're out.
That's right. So,
to use a baseball reference.
For the American audience, yeah. I'm not the biggest baseball fan. I have no idea about the rules. Yeah, anyway, so Mitch Evans received a penalty, or his third warning of the year, which resulted in a penalty for going too quick under full course yellow. We have this obligatory full course yellow practice in FP1 where the race director calls a full course yellow, so every car has to slow down to 50 kilometers an hour. It's just to practice with the marshals on site and for the teams to check whether their speed limiters are set correctly and all of that. And apparently Jaguar's speed limiter wasn't set correctly because Mitch Evans was going 2.3 kilometers an hour above the speed limit. It was his second warning of the season. That's the point. It was his second warning of the season. And then he received a third warning of his season, which was his third strike, because in Superpole he activated his 250 kilowatts mode too early.
Yeah, too early.
And only by about 3 seconds or less even. And that meant he had his 3 warnings and resulted in a 10-place grid drop, demoting him from 2nd to 12th, with no real chances of moving up much in the race.
Yeah, with no real chance of moving up the order.
That's right,
So that penalty then promoted Pascal Wehrlein up into second, and Felipe Massa, I believe, was in third.
Felipe Massa was in third position, yes. No, Rowland was in third position. Massa.
Yes, because of the penalties, and Massa went up into fourth. Yes, you are correct. Yes, you are correct. I thought Rowland still started fourth despite the penalty, but no, you are right. So, but let's talk about Felipe Massa, because he has come on trumps lately. It's considering that, he had that difficult start of the season, and after 4 or 5 races, people were questioning whether or not Felipe Massa was, good enough for Formula E. Or
does he still have
it? Does he still have it? Yeah. And he's starting to prove himself. He's had a couple of Super Bowl appearances now. He's starting to fight at the front end, and I think we can put that sort of question to bed, that Felipe Massa, this is such a difficult series, and it astonishes my mind sometimes when you see other journalists writing stories about, opinion pieces about if Felipe Massa still has it, when he's only done 4 races, and you've got drivers in this field who have done, all 50, whatever it is now that we've done. And you've got a driver in his 4th race, and you're questioning whether or not he's good enough for the series. And you're just like, give the guy a break. Like, it's not an easy series to get to grips with. It's a completely different way of driving. It's a completely different ethos of going racing. It's not the same as going to race in Formula 1 cars like he's done all his career. It's a completely different ethos, and he's had to get used to that. And I think, his practice and, his quality of driver is now starting to show, because he's getting used to it. And he's in a car that's a Venturi at the end of the day, which, is that the quickest car on the track? Probably not, no, compared to when you have a look at Oliver Rowland, who's in the Nissan, but we know that Nissan is a quite quick car, and if Nissan were to get it right, and probably should have got it right, they should have had a race win this season. I know Venturi have had a race win by default, in effect, in Hong Kong, but Venturi aren't up there consistently, whereas Nissan now are up there consistently, so I think what Massa's doing has been brilliant.
Absolutely, and you have to bear in mind that Venturi started out the year with a lot of technical difficulties. They had their driveshaft issues from one race to the next. Now, since Rome, they've moved on to another partner and a new supplier for their driveshafts. And ever since that move was made, that switch was made, Venturi is on their game all of a sudden. They are not a top team, not by any means. But with a good qualifying result, Venturi has the chance of scoring podium results. And it's, just a quick spoiler, they ended up on the podium in Monaco for the third time this year. Mortara was on it twice, now Massa for the first time this season. And apart from the obvious technical difficulties in the first 2/3 of the year, Massa, of course, also had to adapt to these really difficult Formula E cars. They are just a completely different beast to drive compared to Formula 1 cars. And that just takes time to learn the car and, adapting to it and to the nature of street racing, of course, of always racing on street circuits, and then these twitchy cars with a lot of torque. That takes time getting used to. Unless you're Pascal Wehrlein, of course, but Massa had to learn how to drive a Formula E car first. Then add in the technical difficulties, and now he's picking up pace again, and that's really, really good to see. And to all the doubters, of course, he's found the right answer now. He still has it, and Felipe Massa still is a fantastic, outstanding driver. And he's starting to prove that. This season he's been a bit behind his teammate, of course, who has one more year of experience in FE, but Massa is showing that he has the performance, without a question.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say with like Pascal Wehrlein. It's interesting how drivers can just jump in, but everyone's different. That's the thing. Everyone's different, and everyone has maybe more. You could say Wehrlein might therefore have more natural talent than Felipe Massa. But when Felipe Massa gets going, they're pretty level, if that makes sense. Because Pascal was able to just jump in and go. But I suppose Pascal's been jumping in and out of DTM cars, Formula E, Formula One. Like Massa's been in one series for ages, whereas Pascal's been in a few. So he's gotten used to driving maybe different cars. So maybe that actually helped him to like be quick because he's got a bit more familiarity. But like talking to Pascal and himself, he looks like, and he just talks as if he's a guy that it doesn't matter what you put in him, he will go hell for leather straight away and will be quick in whatever you put him. Whereas when you're like, if you're in one series like Massa was for so long, then it can make it makes sense that you might have to rethink a way how you go racing. But it's interesting that you brought it up. The only other thing I wanted to point out for qualifying before we start looking at the race and start answering some of these questions was, despite Group 1, obviously we weren't expecting it to be much of a factor. It did actually turn out to be a little bit of a factor because we had Andre Lotterer in Group 1, who was the slowest of the Group 1 qualifiers, and we still had Jerome D'Ambrosio, and we had Robin Freins, who was the championship leader. And none of them, they were all bottom half, mainly Group 1. They were all below the top 10. And Andre Lotterer was, the worst one, being down in 20th position. So, even on a track that we weren't really expecting Group 1 to have a major impact, it still did.
Yeah, but I'm sure Andre must have had a mistake on his lap. We didn't see the entire lap on Teddy, sadly. But he was so far off the pace. In the end, he set a lap time of 51.0, and the pole position time in the end by Jean-Eric Verne was a whole second quicker and their teammates. I'm not sure if the disadvantage of Group 1 makes up for 1 full second. He was even 0.2 of a second slower than Tom Dillman, the next slowest car on the grid after all. He must have made some sort of mistake on his lap, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Obviously,
to correct myself, I just realised Verne was in Group 1, and made it in, and obviously ended up on pole position after, and made it into Super Pole. But the majority, you had your Freins, your D'Ambrosio, your Lotterer, they're all mainly bottom half. They're not, Da Costa was not too bad actually. It was lower end, top 10. But, it's not where these drivers want to be on the grid, especially going into a race in Monaco where it's nearly impossible to overtake.
Another really interesting story raised by many drivers after qualifying was the warming of their tyres. Formula E doesn't have any tyre blankets, as Formula 1 does, so drivers have to drive out of the pits with cool tyres, and not even cool tyres, cold tyres, icy, cold tyres, and then warm them on one lap. And given the nature of the Monaco circuit, it's been the shortest track on the entire calendar this year. Drivers really
1.7 kilometers.
Warming 1.7 kilometers. That's not much. And drivers really struggled with warming their tyres before their qualifying runs, especially in Superpole. In group qualifying, you have practically 2 laps to warm the tyres up, get the brakes up to temperature. But especially in Superpole, you have 1 out lap, then you do your hot lap, and all the temperatures have to be up at the operating windows by the time they start their fast laps. So drivers in Superpoles really struggled with that, and in qualifying as well. And with the sun shining in Monaco, the track got warmer and warmer from one group to the next. Then you can take into account a couple of trees over the circuit and high-rise buildings maybe that brought shade onto some parts of the circuit. The start-finish straight is always really, even with Formula 1 and others, when they're there, it's always in shade. You're not going to get much sun in that area. That's right, and that just makes the asphalt cooler than the other parts of the track. So playing with the temperatures really was a key issue in qualifying for many drivers. I'm not sure if that's the only reason André Lotterer finished dead last in qualifying, but that's just an interesting point raised by many drivers after qualifying.
So let's before we start the race, let's answer one of the first questions that we were going to talk about during the race. Going into qualifying, obviously the problems about that. Would it have been nice, because obviously this question was asked, it's not a new question. This question was asked in season 3. I remember asking this question in Monaco in season 3. For season 5, should we be racing on the full layout? Was it time? Because it seemed like the FIA didn't want to compare Formula 1 lap times with Formula E, but the drivers were saying, so this is what the drivers were saying over the weekend, was that Formula E knows it's slower. It wants to be a completely different race series to Formula 1. So, why should we be worried about comparing ourselves to Formula 1? I know it would happen. Like, don't get me wrong, as soon as we do 1 lap around that full Monaco track, within 10 minutes on social media, on Twitter, there will be a side-by-side comparison. And, it will happen. People will compare it. But I don't feel like Formula E should be worried about being compared to Formula 1.
That's right. People always compare F1 to other race series because Formula 1 is the quickest single-seater series on the planet right now. People compare F1 to F2 in Monaco and to the Porsche Super Cup. And people will compare Formula 1 lap times to Formula E lap times. As you rightly pointed out, it's been the FIA who took the decision in the end, and not Formula E itself. And the drivers were all in favour. I don't think there was a single driver who wouldn't have wanted to race the whole Grand Prix layout. Yeah, so all the drivers were in favor of doing the Grand Prix circuit. The fans would have been in favor of it. I think the operational side of Formula E would have been in favor of it as well. We would have certainly been in favor of using the entire layout. Yeah, we might see it with the next race happening in 2 years' time. Obviously, Formula E switches their slot before the F1 race with the historic Grand Prix of Monaco. It's their turn next year. They are using the full layout as well. So yeah, I think Formula E should have opted for the Grand Prix layout. We can't change it now, can we? But I'm not sure it was right to be afraid, or I'm not sure there were any good, like properly good reasons to be afraid of going to the Grand Prix circuit.
Yeah, I'm just thinking for myself, like, I think, we wouldn't have had, because I was going to the track and thinking, alright, what's qualifying going to be? And I've said this on the podcast before, I was looking, could we get close to 45 seconds? We got fairly close, we got 49, I was a couple of seconds off, but, if we go into Season 7 using that small layout, we will be hitting 45 seconds comfortably.
I don't think so.
It
might
depends on how much.
Second or 1.5 seconds.
Maybe. Well, what was it? So the fastest we saw was something 49. So you'd be pretty close. You'd be a second off 45 seconds, or 3/4 of a minute. You'll be very close to it. So I was thinking, and that's what I was thinking. Obviously, it was a bit off by a couple of seconds, but I have this gripe about having Formula E tracks that are less than a minute long and going to tracks. It feels very go-karty. It feels like it should be a go-kart track rather than a racing series in itself. Like a proper championship shouldn't be going on a track that's only 50 seconds or 48 seconds long. Like, for me, Oliver Rowland, I remember when I was speaking to him, it's like they said they reckon that it'll be similar to, if we went on the full layout, it'd be similar to a lap time in Rome, like 1.5 minutes to 1:35, maybe 1:40, at worst. He said it's not going to be horrific. We're not going to be 2 minutes around the Monaco GP. That will be about 20 seconds off a Formula 1 lap time.
Sure.
And for me, it was like, well, that's fine. We're still, obviously, Formula 1 is in its infancy, and obviously Formula 1 at one point in its time would have been fairly 1:30, probably around Monaco, and they wouldn't have had the extra chicanes probably at that point, back in the 1950s. And considering that's where Formula E is today, where Formula 1 was obviously back then. But I just feel like it was really, I think I know that you wanna have that comparison. You don't want that comparison because I can see the FIA's point of view. They don't want that comparison because they don't want to look like, Formula E is rising so quickly, and they don't want them to look like, but they're rising so quickly, but then that rise gets dropped because they see how much slower they are compared to Formula 1. So it's like protecting the fan base, like putting the fan base in a bubble. To say, look, we're still pretty quick, 50 seconds around Monaco, even though it's a bit shorter, but, if you add the little bit layout, you never know, it might be about 1:25, who knows? We'll never know because we're not going to do it, to avoid the comparison, so you can make it up for yourselves. But, I just feel like FIA please, let the series do what's good for the series. I don't feel like Monaco is great for the series. It's a track, and I feel like going into, there's a lot of corners that you could overtake at. The chicane could be a massive overtaking point. The Nouvelle chicane could be huge with energy management concerns, because if you're in a position like Verne was and other drivers were towards the end of the race, you'll be able to sail. If you've got good energy, you'll be able to sail up the inside into the Nouvelle chicane. Yeah. And it'll become a fantastic overtaking point. So, for me, I felt like you've got Mirabeau. Mirabeau could become an overtaking point, especially if you're saving energy. I don't think anyone will risk it into Lowe's hairpin, but Mirabeau. I don't think you go into Massenet either. I think Massenet would be pretty brave. But we saw an overtaking to the back by Robin Frijns in the race. Like, maybe even to back could become, because if a driver has to lift off, because there isn't, in the second sector, it's pretty straight until you brake for the Nouvelle chicane. So that's a pretty, you've got to save energy in that sector.
Yeah.
And that, I feel like if we had that, then to back, the Nouvelle chicane could have become like really decent overtaking points, and we could have actually had a racing series that showed you can overtake at Monaco. Yes, you need these factors of saving energy and lifting and coasting, but that's what Formula E is about. To conserve energy and find the best cars to improve, battery efficiency in the future. And what a way to show it, and what a way to show. Imagine if, and I think this is what teams want, like Audi, Jaguar. If Jaguar, for
show that they're the best in powertrain.
Exactly. So
design.
They can show in Monaco that their cars can overtake anyone at Monaco's because they've got the best battery efficiency. Then everyone's like, oh, look at Jaguar, they're making waves. If it's Jaguar, for example, obviously other manufacturers could do it, but just pointing out Jaguar because it's the first one that came into my head. But, if it was Jaguar, then people would be like, wow, Jaguar are making real good movements in terms of their battery efficiency. Like, teams will be wondering, oh, what are they doing? Because obviously what they're doing is good, and all of that technology can then be harnessed and then put into road cars, and then all of a sudden, from going from 250-mile range, we can up that to 400 or 450, and that makes electric cars more appealing because you have that higher range. If it was a 450-mile car now, my car can only do 400, and it's a petrol engine. Yes, it's like a small little 1-litre engine, but at the same time, like that would have a more efficiency level technically than my car. So then, the appeal to switch to an electric car becomes greater. So I feel like, don't worry about the comparison, because you never know. The full layout could be fantastic for the series.
The only factor that makes me think twice about using the full Grand Prix layout is how wide the circuit is compared to other FE circuits. Even the short FE version was luxurious compared to other circuits we've seen this year. Think about Hong Kong, for example. It's really narrow, or Beijing. Think about Beijing in the first two seasons, if you've seen them. That was so narrow. That was really, really narrow. And
it was narrow in places, but I felt it was a bit wide in places as well. But it was definitely narrow. True. I do remember.
Beijing was
like the last section where
Prost
and Heitfeld crashed. You could definitely get free wide.
Yeah,
in that
easy.
Road. But there was some sections where you wouldn't want to put two, like Hong Kong, for example.
Yeah.
Now Hong Kong's pretty narrow. Hong Kong is incredibly narrow.
Yeah, that's right. But compare that to Monaco, and Monaco is just a luxury for all the drivers, because you can, even on the short layout, the only narrow part of Monaco was the run between turns 1 and 3. So
I'd agree.
And then the harbour happen.
Yeah, because I remember walking it, and you can see how narrow, and this is where the crash was in season 1, if you remember, and if the viewers
lifting off,
but you can see why there was that crash there, because it becomes so narrow, it like squeezing in, it's like a bottle. Imagine it like a bottle, like a beer bowl, probably a really bad analogy. But that corner is like, that's that bit where that crash happened, the beginning bit where we saw that argy-bargy where they all have to squeeze in afterwards they turn around. That's like the top bit of the bottle of your bottle where you drink the beer, and then it sort of widens up where the actual beer goes down towards. So it does widen as you go towards the harbour section. So it starts narrow, but then, as we saw, you can actually in the race go 2 or 3 abreast, because it does widen up from that little narrow section. You couldn't go 3 abreast at the beginning, but by the end you can.
That's right, yeah. And I'm sure there are narrow parts on the Grand Prix layout as well, and wider parts on the full Grand Prix layout. But I think what I'm saying is, use the full Grand Prix layout for the next time. It's time. Formula E has grown up now, and not grown up. They're still growing.
But it's growing.
But they're not toddlers anymore. Yeah. And that's the impression I get from
5 years old now.
Yeah, that's the impression I get from Formula E using their season 1 layout, as if the cars and drivers and the entire championship still was in toddler mode and couldn't.
It's like it's true. It's like it was like your parents. You want to say something, you want to do this. You think you're a big boy now. You want to go and play. You want to go and jump over that fence. But then all of a sudden, parents come and say no.
Yeah,
here's your dummy.
It's not like the FIA is dictating what to do. But I mean, in part they did with the Monaco layout. But what I'm saying is Formary isn't a toddler. Formary can walk on their own. Formary does know where to go and has a good idea of the direction they're taking. And in my opinion, maybe you have a different opinion, you listeners right now, but in my opinion, Formary has grown enough to use the Grand Prix layout by now.
Right. Yeah. So I think we covered that pretty well. So I think we're about half hour in. I think it's time, Tobias, that we talk about what people.
Half an hour already.
I know. It's flying. Well, close enough to half an hour.
Christ.
You know. So much to talk about. So many interesting things came out this weekend. And we've only touched qualifying, and should we have used the full track? But let's start with the race. So we had Vern, we had Verline, we had Roland, Massa, Buemi. That was your top five, and it was actually, considering a little bottleneck. I don't know if that's what it's actually called, a bottleneck. That's probably what I could have said. I don't know if that's even the actual term for my bottle analogy. Imagine in your head. Sometimes I'm a bit slow. If you've watched every episode of this podcast, you probably might realise I'm a bit slow. But at the same time, it was a fairly, despite that tight section, we've seen crashes and people hitting each other there at the start, but it was actually a really nice, clean getaway.
It was really clean lap, yeah. After we've seen carnage in the first couple of races this season, I expected a repeat of the Senna incident from season 1, to be honest. But we haven't really seen that.
It would have been spectacular.
It would have been really
another red flag.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it didn't happen.
Was absolutely on my list. Seeing a red flag after a pile up in turn 1 and 2, but that didn't happen.
You had the tweet ready, didn't you?
I had it ready, yeah, absolutely. But that didn't happen for some reason, and we had a decently clean start. Of course, drivers always come together in the first couple of turns with people going 3 wide into the third corner, and it was, of course, scruffy. But that's just down to the nature of these Gen 2 chassis. And it is okay to have contact, unlike Formula 1, for example. I hate banging on about Formula 1 in an FE podcast, but you can have contact with other cars in Formula E this year. And that's what we've seen in the first lap. But apart from nothing out of the ordinary, right? All the usual stuff happened on lap 1 without any major incidents.
Which was good. So then we did finally, it wasn't long though until we had our first incident, and I don't think, it was very similar to Paris, where in Paris it was Oliver Rowland who locked up going into the tight in turn 10, but this time it was from the lead of the race, but this time it was Pascal Wehrlein. Now, we were praising Wehrlein at the beginning of the podcast of what a natural talent is, and he could drive everything quick, but and he put his hand up. I spoke to him after the race, and he locked up going into Saint-Devote, went wide, and fell to 4th. And, just an uncharacteristic error from Pascal.
I think the first time it's happened all weekend to him. And running in second in Monaco with a chance of victory. The Mahindra car is really, really quick this year. With a chance of victory, bowling it in turn 1, that hurts. That really has to hurt. And especially him knowing that it was his own mistake, that the car didn't play any role. Potentially, the Nissan played a role in Roland locking up in Paris. We're not sure about that still, but Wehrlein is sure of it, that it was his own mistake, and the car and the brake-by-wire system which we're using this season had nothing to do with it. It was all on his own driving, and, well, that mistake happened. I mean, it happens, but it's, as he called it, a stupid mistake, not necessary. Yeah, I mean, he can't change it now, we can't change it now. But that essentially cost him any chance of a podium. Well, not
because
not
it was
all
a shame because
podium,
he was so quick. Like you saw him behind, because that let Roland through, and it let Massa through into top 3, and that top 3 didn't really change throughout the whole race. But that was one of the main points of the race, and you feel like if Wehrlein was still second, you feel like he would have definitely have had the pace, because obviously once the once the situation happened, Verne built up a bit of a gap. He had about a second and a half advantage at that point after Verline's mistake, because obviously Roland and Massa have to get round without, Verline's trying to desperately get back on the track, and they don't want to obviously touch. But you definitely feel like if Verline was behind, he would have challenged for that race. He would have put Verne under, I think, more pressure than maybe what Roland did during the race.
Well, that's difficult to say. I would have loved to see how it played out in a parallel universe where this mistake didn't happen.
Yeah.
Verline, I'm sure he had pace in his car, but he didn't.
He looked like he had pace. He got the fastest lap, so he had pace.
Absolutely, yeah, but he was a bit stuck behind Felipe Massa. And
no way through.
Without Felipe, I would have loved to see how quick he could have gone. Without the traffic, he might have been able to challenge Van. I'm not saying he would have been able, but he might just have been able to challenge Van. Yeah.
Just to spoil it, because we'll just skip on, because there's no point actually saying it later, because obviously people who are watching this probably already know the race result. So Pascal finished fourth, and Massa finished third. And he did have the pace, but what was actually really interesting was Massa ran out of energy. So we'll get on to the energy management thing in a second. But what I thought was really interesting, because we saw in Mexico where Verline nearly won the race with Lucas de Grassi, was when Verline ran out of energy, and de Grassi obviously squeezed through and won the race. Massa ran out of energy 150 metres before the line, and Verline was right behind. And I'm thinking, if he's ran out of energy and was coasting towards it, how on earth did Verline not finish third?
I have no
150
idea.
metres is I'm pretty sure Verline ran out of energy less than 150 metres from the finish line, and Lucas de Grassi got past.
That was more like 40, yeah.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, are you serious, Felipe? You're telling me it was 150 metres you ran out and you coasted to the line, and I was just thinking, Verline had the energy, Verline had the pace. If someone was, I was staggered in a way that when it came away from after what Massa said, I was like, how did Verline not finish third?
Yeah, I don't know. In the end, it was really close. I'm really bad at maths and numbers in general, but if I've not miscalculated, the distance between the two was 5.7 meters. And that's not much, so it was close. But looking at the TV images, Verline seemed to be a lot closer than in reality he might have been. He tried to attack Massa into the penultimate corner, into Raskas. He tried to move there. They touched, then Anthony Noak. Yeah, they touched again. It was really close, and it seemed as if Verline was practically in the gearbox of the Venturi car. But then, with Massa saying 150 meters before the finish line, he ran out of energy. That seems like a long way before the line, and it seems as if Verline should have moved past him. Yeah. It's
interesting. It's just interesting. I'm not saying Verline, what you doing. How did you not finish third? How did you not pass him? I'm not putting any blame on him, because it's different in reality. But when you just try and think about it and just hang on a second, I'm like, how didn't Massa must have really coasted pretty quickly, the fastest coasting you could have done to cross that line. And here's a tiny bit downhill, but it's not massively downhill, that section of racetrack. So I don't even think the downhill sort of slope before it goes back uphill towards Saint Devote would have helped him too much. But who knows? So to be fair, the race was fairly straightforward once Verline had locked up, but then the energy management sort of really began to take effect sort of halfway through the race, and it was. We found our own little Daniel Ricciardo in this championship, and it came in the form of Sam Bird, who, now you have to remember, the Virgin team had a really poor qualifying. They've really struggled being in Group 1 lately. I think Sam was obviously I'm trying to think. I remember where he qualified, but now trying to do the maths of where He started, so he qualified 15th, and I think Gunther was the only person, so he started 14th. Did Sam, because Gunther was 14 and he had a penalty. So Sam started 14th, but in that middle of the race, Sam was on fire, literally just overtaking around the outside around Lucas Di Grassi to like move up into the points. He managed to get past Robin Freins as well. I don't know. I don't think the team orchestrated. They could have done, but not to my understanding that the team orchestrated that move. And then used turn 1 and passed Lynn, Van Dorn. He was flying up the order.
And these moves into turn 1 were mad. Have we seen
Daniel Ricciardo would be proud.
Yeah, he would have been so proud. Have we ever seen proper moves into turn 1 in the first 2 years we've been to Monaco?
No, not really. Not to that extent.
Yeah, I cannot remember people going forward in turn 3, obviously. That's been the main overtaken spot over the last few years. And the Virgin cars just were on fire. Bird as well as Freins moving past cars in turn 1, which is incredible. It's absolutely mind-boggling how you pull off a move in turn 1. They managed it sort of. I mean, Bird managed it all the time. Freins didn't really manage it all the time. He showed a good overtakes as well in the race, and then ended up smashing into the side and into the rear and into the wall not into the wall of Alexander Sims, but into the car of Alexander Sims and the wall of Monaco. Yeah, anyway, so he ended his race there after crashing in turn 1 with Sims. But Bird really clean moves all race long, and afterwards he said that probably was one of the best races of my life, and I would have to agree. Buenos Aires 2015 still is, in my opinion,
that is good.
FE
that
race
defense
ever. That was a mad race.
Was unbelievable.
He was unbelievable that day. So I'd say Argentina 2015 was his best FE race, but Monaco 2019 certainly is in the top.
The second best, or if not matching that.
Yeah. So that really was a top drive by Sam.
Because I showed some of his overtakes to some people that I work with, and they were like, it's millimeters from disaster. That's how close he was to that wall. It was... Yeah, there was no room. There was literally the car width of Sam Bird, the wall, and the other car.
Yeah.
And you're diving up the inside, and people, they're watching it when you're watching it and you're showing someone and they're moving back when they're watching it. That's how you know. That's how you know how close it was. And when you've got people that might not watch the series, and you're just showing, just watch. This is where I was at. This is what I saw, and they're like, wow. And when you get that wow factor from an overtake, as a driver and as a series, you're doing something right. But that was really interesting. But I suppose we might as well get onto it, as you said, because we had the Freins, whose race ended in disaster, crashing into Freins, and Sam Bird had worked his way up to 6th place on the final lap. And then I saw in the media center, and I saw Bird's name going down, and it literally they'd crossed the line, and you start seeing Bird going down. You're like, and I was like, no, you just think, what could have happened? Don't tell me the battery's just shut down. He's got some sort of drive shaft failure. Don't tell me something like that has ruined his race. But then it was even worse, because you saw him just parked up at Rasgas with a right rear puncture, looked like some bodywork a bit mangled up, and you're like, what's happened?
I haven't seen the pictures as well. What I heard was that he had contact with someone. I think,
and no one seems to know.
Yeah, it might have been Evans, because he was the driver running behind him at the time.
Yeah.
And then exiting the swimming pool chicane, Bird just smashed into the right-hand wall with a previous puncture that meant he lost control over his car, smashed into the wall and had to retire with, I'm not sure, 350, 400 meters before the line, not much before the race, before the checkered flag flew. He had to retire his car and end the race not in P6, but being qualified as 16th in the end. a lap down.
Yeah, it was just a shame because it didn't make sense, and he wasn't even in the media pen afterwards because I spoke to the press officer, and he was called to the stewards for something, maybe to talk about the incident that had just happened. But so he wasn't even there. Like they had to send his apologies that he wasn't there because he couldn't be in. Poor guy can't be in two places at the same time. So we never actually got the insight because I was really wanted to support the Sam. I was like, it was one of those things that you knew everyone at home would be asking that question: what happened to Sam Bird? And then Sam Bird's not there to answer that question. And you're like, no, how? Everyone's at tenterhooks. What happened to Sam Bird? What happened to Sam Bird? And you can't give him the answer. And then you get the press release from Virgin Racing, and sadly it doesn't really answer that question of what happened to Sam Bird, apart from he's obviously upset about it. But I feel sorry for Sam. Like, I saw him in Paris more than I saw him in Monaco. And I had a little tiny conversation with him. And he wears his heart on his sleeve. And he's so down about, he was leading the Drivers' Championship. He looked like a driver that was favourite probably to maybe even go on and start making headway. And then it started going wrong with the Group 1 system in qualifying. He couldn't get his head around it. And I think that, that drains on a driver. When you have a bad qualifying session and you have another bad qualifying session, then getting the next good qualifying session, still being in that same group of Group 1, it becomes more mentally draining. And then he dropped into Group 2 and still couldn't do it. And, when he was in Group 1, he was still getting the better of Frines, but now Frines seems to have got the better of him. And I feel sorry for Sam in that retrospect, because I think he's a driver that is quick enough and deserves the World Championship, or Championship in Formula E's perspective, but he's a driver that, every season you're in that firing line of, he could be a title contender, and for one reason or another it falls away from him.
And he's had so much bad luck. The last 4 races, he's not scored any points. Sanya rear-ended by Van Dorn. Rome rear-ended by Lopez. Miraculously
in Rome,
having his car repaired in the pits due to the red flag, which gave Virgin enough time to fix his car. He ended the race in 11th. A fantastic drive from him. Still not enough for the points. Paris taken out of race by Ambrosio. And now
in the wet conditions, and that's the problem. And to me, this is where I know the qualifying system always gets on. Some people like it, some people dislike it. And I mean the dislike camp of that. But this is for me. Do we want to see championship protagonists like Sam Bird being caught out in the midfield in the wet race in Paris because of the qualifying system? Yes, you could say, well, he could do a better job in qualifying, but as everyone's and I think as Group 1 has proven, it's not. It is hard. It's not just go out there and set a lap time. Everyone has the same track, and so it's difficult. I know cynics could just say, well, he's not doing a good enough job in qualifying, which on paper he isn't. But it seems like there's a lot more to that, and that's just maybe it's a question for another day, about whether or not Formula E should want their, Andre Lotterer second in the championship starting P20, championship leader starting in P12. Like, it doesn't make sense to me, but I'm not going to get too much into that. I'm going to wrap up now the race result, because we saw John-Eric Verne take his second victory, and for me, thankfully, let's just have a quick talk about this. I am so happy that the streak is over. I am so happy that the streak is over.
Why are you?
You feel like Formula E it just felt so forced, and you wanted someone to be a repeat winner, because it was hard for us as journalists in a sense to sort of build up this championship, because not knowing who is in the title fight is also really difficult to then drum up a story. To why should you watch Formula E? Because there's so many different winners, you don't know who's going to win. But it gets boring, in my opinion. It's just like,
by now the story was we had so many different winners. Yeah, you're right. It was getting on my nerves as well, just ever so slightly. And I think it's good to have a repeat race winner. And now that we have a repeat race winner, the hunt is on. We've seen the streak being broken, and now the hunt for the championship is on. Jack, we still have only 4 races left this season, and the championship, after 8 different winners in the first 8 races, is just so incredibly tight and so exciting this year. And now with the first repeat race winner, we will see more names pop up on the top spot of the podium, I'm sure. Andre Lotterer, second in the championship, still hasn't won a race. Pascal Wehrlein still waiting for his first victory this year. He's currently 12th in the standings, but always a good...
Is there or thereabouts in the races as well.
Absolutely, and same applies to Oliver Rowland and Sebastian Buemi. They've been so close to victory this year, and Nissan is still waiting for the first top result. And they still have 4 races left. Maybe it works out next time out in Berlin, maybe in Bern. Would be fantastic for Buemi to win his home race, of course. Yeah, anyway, but the championship is just so close together, and the drivers in the championship are just so close together just because of these mixed up race results. And now with the first repeat race winner, the hunt really is on, and Jean-Eric Verne always will have to look behind him and see where the other people are in the championship. Do you want to just quickly run down just how close it is in terms of points in the championship?
Oh, the Drivers' Championship. Let me just finish. Well, before I get that, just to clarify, so we have Verne winning the race, followed by Oliver, followed by Oliver Rowland, who said in the driver pen to me that he didn't fancy overtaking, despite having more energy. He wasn't going to risk overtaking Verne because, as we've said, Nissan have thrown so many points away this season. He's like, I'm not going to throw away 18 trying to pass Verne. I'll wait for a better track, maybe a cleaner or easier track, maybe Berlin in 2 weeks' time, where there will be space in Berlin to overtake. And then we had Felipe Massa getting his first podium in Formula E. That was a scene, like, he was mobbed after the race. It was a big talking point, and it shows Massa is moving forward and is moving in the right direction, because he had Wehrlein in 4th, and they were, they pulled a gap. They were the leading, quartet, I think is the correct term.
That's right.
The leading pack, and Massa was part of that. So if you're going to be part of a person that's leading for a race, even more reason why Massa should be considered that he's definitely still good enough for this series. And then we had Buemi in 5th, Evans 6th, Lotterer from P20 to P7, pretty decent result.
Amazing.
Alex Lynn in 8th, Stoffel Vandoorne 9th, and Jose Maria Lopez rounding out the top 10. Retirements were Turvey, Degrassi, Mortara, and Gunther. Freins and Bird also crashed out, but were classified 16th and 17th. So then, to ask your question about the Drivers' Championship, it's just loading on my screen because I was just watching the other one. So it is incredibly close. So Jean-Eric Verne, 87 points after 9 races now. Andre Lotterer, 86, so still a point between them. Robin Freins, he's still there, even though he thought I was telling him in the media pundit he wasn't a title contender, when I was just saying, do you feel like you have a car to challenge for the title? Is on 81. And then you have Antonio Felix da Costa, who believes he can win this. He should have won this championship, and he believes he has the fastest car out there, but the qualifying system is just letting him down every week, in his opinion. Is in 4th. Yep, he's in 4th. There's no numbers in this championship I'm looking at, with 70 points. Lucas Degrassi tied with him in 5th with 70. Mitch Evans, 69. Jerome D'Ambrosio still knocking about with 65. And Ollie Rowland with 59. So I would say, really and truly, you could maybe say Oliver Rowland might have a chance, but you could say anyone from D'Ambrosio, because of how mixed up this season is. From anyone really from D'Ambrosio upwards, so D'Ambrosio, Evans, Degrassi, Da Costa, Freins, Lotterer and Verne are probably your main championship protagonists now.
Mathematically speaking,
I don't see...
Mathematically, anyone could win.
Mathematically speaking, anyone could win, but I don't feel like Pascal Wehrlein. I know episode 2 of this Formula E Zone podcast, we were saying, you know what, he's quick, isn't he? He's a good lad. And he's had how many races? He's really not scored any points, not classified in Hong Kong, 6, 1 point in Rome, 1 point in Paris, and he's on 51 points. I just feel with 87 with Verne, I just feel like that's, even with 2 wins, it's supposed to 2 wins in Verne. But then there's other people who will pick up points. Like it's going to be difficult for people like Wehrlein, Buemi, Mortara, Bird, Apt, I would say, to challenge for the title.
Yeah, well, of
it's going to
course.
be.
Yeah, I'm saying anyone could win the championship. Of course, we have favorite teams in air quotes. Of course, not our favorite teams, but teams in favorable positions.
Yeah.
And I mean, mathematically, Tom Dillon could still end up being the champion of this season. The two of us, we could start up a new team, hire a driver, and still win the championship. How about that?
We could Braun GP
it. Yeah, that's right. With 4 races to go this season, we could still end up the champion. Yeah.
Talks with Formula E are ongoing about our entrance into Berlin.
Early discussions.
We'll keep you posted. Okay, we're breaking news on Formula E Zone and eFormula D, the partnership. But the teams championship, and sort of into a talking point I want to do on before, because we'll need to wrap up soon. But another talking point I want to do. So Tech Cheetah, Dan, 173 points leading the championship now, and Envision Virgin Racing second with 135. Now, I feel like we've criticised this qualifying system, and I have criticised this qualifying system. But are we now seeing the drivers, the best drivers, or the drivers that should be winning the championship, or starting to come to the top, like we've got now with Vernon Lotterer, like the two Tech Cheetah cars who we thought were quickest before, them and BMW. Obviously, after Adiria, we thought Tech Cheetah were amazingly quick, even though they didn't win that race. With the drive-through penalties that they got, are the best teams now starting to emerge?
Ooh, difficult to say. In my view, DS Techeetah is the quickest team. So from that coming from that point, yes, the quickest team is emerging. But we still have Nissan in 5th in the championship, BMW in P6 in the championship,
which is crazy.
Yeah. They should be a long way up the order. That said, if they were more up the order, other teams would drop and have to drop. Virgin currently 2nd, Audi 4th, Audi 3rd, pardon, and Mahindra 4th. They deserve to be there as well. It's a really tough question. Someone has to be 5th in that lineup. And I'm not sure if Nissan at the moment are the team to be 5th. In my opinion, Nissan is one of the top 3 teams. BMW certainly still has potential for another race win, which will move them up as well in the order. So yes, the quickest team, singular, is emerging. DS Techeetah, in my eyes, is the quickest team this season. But the quickest teams, plural, I'm still struggling with that. Because Virgin, Audi, Mahindra, Nissan, BMW, hell, even Venturi and Jaguar,
84 points of Venturi and Jaguar 74.
Yeah, I mean, they are level. In some races, they are level on performance. And it's really difficult to say, at this stage of the season, who's quickest. It's crazy to say at this stage of the season. Man, we're only 4 races away from the final race, or 3 races away from the final race of this year. But it's still too early to call who is the second strongest force in FE, and the third and the fourth and the fifth. The first strongest,
which has been the talking point all
the
season.
Strongest force we can talk about is Techeetah. As I said, in my opinion, Techeetah is the best team this year, or have not proven, but
to have the best car.
Yeah, maybe. Now that I think about it, do they have the best car? One of the best cars.
This is the debate.
I should think
we could have a whole podcast on who is the fastest team, to be honest with you, and we've taken, it's crazy when you think about it.
Yeah. So what I'm going to say is, DS Techeetah at this point are the quickest team, and deservedly so. They are in P1 in the team's championship, and it's all up for grabs behind them, because all the teams behind them, with the exception of maybe HWA, Dragon and Neo, can be on a good day on the same level of performance.
Lovely. Right, before we do Driver of the Day, we've got to answer one more question. We'll try and keep this one a bit quick. So, energy management. Okay, so drivers sort of saying energy management. We saw energy management play a factor towards the end. Roland had more percentage, 3%. Vern finished on that 1. And people talk about energy management overtaking, that sort of allowed it, and we sort of didn't touch on it. But it's sort of interesting talking at the end of the race. Buemi was talking about that, we should have more races like Monaco and Marrakesh where energy management was a factor, and that 45 minutes, isn't long enough for a Formula E race, and maybe we should go back to a lap system, because if we want energy management to play a role in Formula E races, you need to have longer races, and in terms of to make it more of a factor. So what do you think? Should Formula E maybe be thinking about going back to a lap system, or should we be looking to maybe extend the race maybe by 5 minutes, or maybe hit an hour race plus a lap? What do you think?
Oh, that's a good question. I've always been a fan of laps and not the biggest advocate for timed races. Timed races just it's the equivalent of the Monaco circuit, to be honest. Timed races make Formula E look a bit immature. It gives the impression that Formula E, I'm not sure if it gives out the impression that Formula E isn't a top tier championship. Just the fact that we have timed races. The thing is, I've never been the biggest fan of timed races, and I'd like to go back to laps simply because of the fact, and things have improved, but in the first half of this season, we've often seen red flags being called, or safety cars, or full course yellows, and that meant the clock was ticking, but the drivers weren't using any energy, and
so it makes it an easy energy management race. Everyone can go flat to the flag.
Flat out to the flag.
No fuel worries if you were to convert it to a normal racing championship that's not Formula E, and it becomes so much harder to overtake. Whereas we only had a very short full course yellow period in Monaco, so we didn't really have too much of an energy management saving, but we still had it. Imagine if we didn't have that full course yellow, how close, would Massa might have not made the race, Vern might have not made the race. So, and that's what Buemi was saying, it's like, 45 minutes, maybe it's tough here, but in Rome, or not Rome, Paris, for example, it said it's too easy. We could do a 45-minute race basically flat because we're not going to run out of energy. So that's why he was sort of campaigning for the lap system and maybe extending the races to make, teams focus really on that energy management system in terms of the powertrain, and showing that the best team that has the best powertrain in terms of energy management then sort of comes to the top, rather than someone who has the quickest car. Because you might have the quickest car, but if you use the most energy, then great having the quickest car, but if you're not going to make the race and you can't use that speed, then there's no point. So I think, honestly, I would like to see longer races. I feel like 45 minutes goes past really quickly. I feel like an hour is probably, I wouldn't go, to be honest with you, comparing it to like Formula 1, it's really awful to do, but Formula 1's an hour and a half, and sometimes, with Formula 1 being in the current situation that it is, you feel like an hour and a half is too long for a race. So I think an hour probably would be the perfect length, because you can have some sort of interesting race, and it doesn't take too long, it's not dragging out, if that makes sense. Because I think sometimes when you watch races that, and as I suppose maybe, like, I'm a massive fan of the WEC series, but some people don't like the WEC series because it takes 6 hours for the race to be completed, and it's too long, so it drags out and you have to like commit to watching it, or like jumping in and out of it, so it's hard to build up that fan base. I'm the complete opposite, I just love it to pieces, but I understand where people are coming from in that sort of sense that they can't watch a really long race. So I feel like don't go too long with it, but because the problem is Formula E the energy management and energy efficiency will get better every season, so sooner or later 45 minutes will become easy for
even 45 minutes will be easier. I'm not sure if an hour is maybe too long for now. We will see 1 hour. Certainly have the possibility of seeing races lasting 1 hour in the near future. I'm sure of it. Not sure if 1 hour would be too long as of today. but
yeah, it might be too long as of today. I'm not saying today, but I was throwing that time out there to see if drivers would then say to me that's too long at this point. But they weren't actually. That was the interesting thing. They weren't telling me that's too long. Yeah, Da Costa was like, 50 minutes an hour. It's doable. Just make it happen. And then it focuses the engineers more on what they would have to do, because if they could build a car that 45 minutes, we just need to improve that bit much, and then we should be fine for 45 minutes, and then they can just go build the fastest car in a sense. But if they have a longer race time, then, and really and truly, it's not about building the fastest electric car at this precise moment. Anyone can build a fast electric car. It's been done, but it's about building an electric car at the moment that can run for longer than a petrol engine. So really and truly, the Formula E races should be determined on efficiency rather than speed, in my honest opinion. But would you agree or do you disagree before I move on?
I would agree, yeah.
Perfect. Right. Driver of the day. Dan's favourite bit, but he's not here. Poor Dan. But we must soldier on and do it for him, because otherwise he will be messaging us and telling us that we're not doing the podcast properly. So this is for you, Dan.
Just
Tobias, driver of the day. Who do you give it to?
I give my driver of the day award to. Oh God.
It's so difficult. This is why we hate Dan. It's a shame we can't really hate him. We can. He's not here. We can still hate Dan.
I think I'll say my driver of the day was Van, and for one reason. He did a spectacular job in terms of managing the gap to the drivers behind him. Looking at the timing screen, the distance between him and the trio following him always changed, and in some parts of the race they were closer to him, in some parts of the race he moved away from him. But he did a fantastic job of just bringing the car home on one hand, and on the other hand, managing the gap, dictating the pace. And he drove, in my opinion, a very clever race. He's a smart guy, and he's proven that once more in Monaco. And that's why I think I'm going to give him my driver of the day.
For me, it's Sam Bird. It's just he put to bed the myth you can't overtake at Monaco, in my opinion. He put that myth to bed, and he said, hold on, I am Sam Bird, the one and only. And the overtakes that he did were fantastic. Even Robin Friends' overtake also into the back was amazing, but Bird was able to pull off move after move after move, and we don't know how his race came to an end, sadly. And we may never know. He may never tell us, but we might do in Berlin. So maybe you can ask for me, Tobias. But he was just fantastic. It was a massive disappointment that he didn't finish, but to do what he did during that race and to still have energy at the same point was miraculous. So I think we'll end it here. Thank you so much, Tobias, for coming on. Obviously, pleasure is always.
Oh no, thank you for having me. It's always great fun being on these podcasts, and I really enjoy the time with you.
It's good fun. Right, please remember, I'm going to do I feel bad because we never normally do this, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to sell out to the normal YouTube thing. So make sure you give us a like. Smash that like button, as PewDiePie says. Smash that like button. We're on 93 subscribers. When we started this podcast, we were on. And now I know we have a good audience on Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts, and we really appreciate it's good to see that we're growing on those podcast platforms as well. But on YouTube, where this also goes out, we started off having about 33 subscribers. We're now on 93. Okay, we're 7 away from 100. So smash that subscriber button. Yeah, let's get to 100. I feel like, come on. You could disagree, viewers, if you think maybe no one's listening to this point because we've got to the no one's listening because we're rubbish. But subscribe, and we have a Patreon if you are so inclined. Like we do have a Patreon page. It is linked into the description, but we're not asking anyone to donate to it. It's only if you feel like you love us. There's no real prize for donating. There's no real extra features apart from, paying for Tobias to have some food or whatever it is. No, I think it's and Dan. No, I think it's Dan to get food, me to get a watch, and Tobias he needs to go back to Sweden and go back on holiday. So it's just to pay for that, really.
For my holidays.
For your holidays. Yeah, that's what it's for. That's what it says. If you're on the Patreon page, that's what it says. It's just fun. It's just a little bit of fun if you want to do Patreon. But we really appreciate all your listens, all your feedback that we get, all the comments that we get via social media and on YouTube. We really appreciate it. So thank you so much for listening, and we will see you after the Berlin E-prix.
My home race. See you after Berlin. Bye bye.
Bye.